Hey everyone, it's Vicky, and today I am going to talk about the books I read in April. And April was kind of a meh month, to be honest. I didn't read as much as I'd hoped, despite having most of the month off from school. I had two books that were in the the 2-star range. No 5-star reads. It was just a meh month. So it's definitely, in terms of like average rating and stuff, my lowest month of the year so far. But I'm still gonna wrap it up for you. So let's get into it. So the first book that I completed in April was my favorite book of the month, because then the rest of it kind of went, I would say, other than one other book, it kind of went downhill. But I read Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukavka. I read this on my Kindle. And this one is about, at the opening of the book, you are introduced to this man, and he is a death row inmate. He is in prison. You meet him on the day of his execution, the morning of his execution, and it takes you throughout the book. It kind of counts down to the moment of his execution. And then throughout, you also meet, I think it was 3 women who in one way or another were impacted by this man. It was a really interesting book. I liked the writing choices, first of all. The POVs where you were with the women were, I believe, told in just sort of a third person sort of narrative. But the points in the book where you were with Ansel, the man, it was in second person, and I thought that was an interesting writing choice. I liked it, and overall it was a very dark book, of course, and it felt like it dealt a lot with themes of the choices that you make in life and how those choices play out in one way or another, and also just sort of like time, because the entire book you are counting down to the moment that this man is going to die. And it was just really interesting. I'm not sure if this was a debut novel, but I will definitely read more from this author. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I listened to the audiobook of Violeta by Isabel Allende. This is translated from Spanish. Who is the translator? Frances Riddle. And this one is about a woman named Violeta. When you meet her at the beginning of the book, it's the day that she's born, and it takes you through her entire life. She was born in 1920 during the flu pandemic during that time, and then she dies in 2020, or at the end of the book, it's 2020, so she's 100 years old, and she is going through the COVID pandemic. So her life is sort of bookended by these 2 pandemics. And in between, lots of stuff happens. And this one I liked, again, kind of like with Notes on an Execution, the writing choices in here. The book is told through a series of letters that Violeta is writing to someone. You don't exactly know who it is for a while. So when that is revealed, it's kind of interesting, because I don't know if it tells you that in the blurb. So I didn't want to say it, who she is writing these letters to. And yeah, it just sort of takes you through her life, and she lives through a lot of different interesting things. And for me, I thought the beginning of the book and Violeta's childhood was pretty strong. I was enjoying it. And then it hit a point where it got kind of slow and kind of boring. And quite frankly, I almost DNF'd it. And I think I had like 100 pages left, and I was like, no, I just need to stick it out. So it started out strong, and then it kind of petered out. So for that, I gave it a 2.75 rating. There was nothing wrong with the writing or anything. Like I said, it was just the story just kind of lost me, and I never really felt super connected to Violeta. So 2.75. Then I read a nonfiction book called The Dance Cure: The Surprising Science to Being Smarter, Stronger, and Happier by Dr. Peter Lovett. Dr. Peter Lovett is a dancer turned doctor, and this whole book is about the benefits of dance and how it can improve your life in various ways. And this one, I listened to it on audio, and honestly, I think this book is better suited to reading physically, because there are things in here that are definitely more visual that you just don't get the benefit from at all when you're listening to the audiobook. So I would say if you're interested in this, read it physically. And overall, I thought this was an enjoyable read, an easy read. There wasn't really anything necessarily new that I felt like I learned, or anything that I felt challenged by or anything. These were all things that I definitely agree with, because I think that dance is great for the soul and for life. And so there was nothing in here that I felt was particularly argumentative or anything like that. It was a fairly easy book, fairly short book. It's under 200 pages. So I gave it 3 stars because, again, I think I would have enjoyed it more if I had physically read it. But it wasn't a terrible book. That's why I gave it 3 stars. Then I read probably my most disappointing read for the month. I read Murder Road by Simone St. James. This was an anticipated read. I obviously went out and bought this book, when it came out, because the premise was very interesting. It's about a couple that are traveling and they come across this hitchhiker who they pick up, and some crazy stuff happens and they end up staying in this town and investigating this hitchhiker and other circumstances surrounding other hitchhikers that have been on this stretch of road that they were on. And then there's like a lot of background about the couple, the man and the woman, their background and whatnot. In this book, it was okay. I guess my favorite thing about it was set in Michigan. Although I think the actual town where everything takes place, I don't think that's a real town, but real towns were mentioned, like Ann Arbor, because the couple were originally from Ann Arbor. So like that was kind of cool having a book set in Michigan. But the story itself was okay. Wasn't scary at all. It had a supernatural element to it that, to me, there was no point in this book where I was creeped out at all or thought, ooh, this is a good horror section or anything. There was none of that. The supernatural aspect, there were parts of it, especially at the end, there were some reveals made and stuff that didn't make a lot of sense to me, that raised a lot of questions and were just sort of, I didn't understand it, I guess. So for me, this is like the second Simone St. James book. Her last book, actually, I had the same issue. I only gave it 2 stars, where I just didn't like it. And she just has not been able to top Broken Girls for me. And so I think, I'm not saying I'm done with Simone St. James. I'm just saying I'm done buying her books because the past 2 have been flops for me. And so I think if any of her books in the future interest me, I will probably just get them from the library. Because this one, I gave it 2.5 stars. It was disappointing. I was hoping for a cool, sort of supernatural kind of ghost story dealing with like a haunted road. And I don't know, there was like aspects of this where the couple, they're kind of playing detective, and I thought it was really annoying. There was just a lot about this book that I just didn't enjoy it. So I gave it 2.5 stars. I don't even know if I would recommend this. And then I finished out the month, luckily, by reading a book I did enjoy, especially after having a couple that were just meh. I read Night Watching by Tracy Sierra. And this is, I would call this more of a suspense book. Like maybe even like literary suspense, about a woman who is home with her kids alone one night, and a guy comes into their home, and she has to take her 2 children who are fairly young. I want to say they're like 8 and 5 or somewhere in there. And she has to hide with the kids from this guy. And that's all I can really say about the plot, because then the story sort of takes this whole sort of other direction that I wasn't expecting. And so I feel like I don't want to reveal any of that. So it's hard to review this book also for that reason, because I don't want to say too much. But I will say that this book was intense. And as a parent of kids that are about the same age as the kids in this book, I was like, how could I hide in my home with my 2 kids and keep them quiet? so that this man doesn't hear us. So I was putting myself in that position throughout the whole first chunk of this book, and it was just scary. It's a scary thing to think about, somebody coming into your house and trying to harm you or your children and having to protect them, and very high stakes and all of that. So for that, I was on the edge of my seat. And then, like I said, the turn the book takes was also very interesting. And like I said, it's hard to talk about without spoiling things, but it was also very frustrating as a reader to see what our main character was going through, and how often what she's going through happens to women in real life all the time. And so for that, I thought that theme was super strong, super important, super well done, because it's a topic that I feel like has been talked about, but it's still going on. And so it needs to be addressed. And that's all I can say without spoiling things. So the writing was solid. Like I said, it was very thought-provoking. The social commentary was on point. And I really enjoyed it. So I gave it 4 stars. I would recommend this one for sure. If it interests you at all, check it out. It's worth the read. And that's it. I feel like April was just a meh month. Other than Night Watching and Notes on an Execution, the books I read were just okay. Audiobooks were my friend this month. I listened to 3 audiobooks. I had the 1 ebook, and I only read 1 physical book. I read Night Watching physically. So it was kind of slow also. So yeah, I'm ready to move on from April, and hopefully May will be better. Let me know what you read in April. Hopefully you had a better month than I did, reading-wise. Let me know your favorite book, because I would love to know what you were loving, and I guess that's it. So I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.